Welcome to the April 20th, 2021 Project Wildfire regular meeting. Today we'll follow the standard format. We've done our welcome and hello and introductions through the chat box. We'll have a quick monthly program update from Boone Zimmerle, myself, and then we'll be turning it over to Oregon State University Extension Services with Nicole Strong. They'll talk through what they offer here at the local office and also talk through their new fire program that has been recently created. Then we'll conclude the meeting with a roundtable updates from folks here at the meeting, and we'll adjourn at 9:30. So currently, we're looking at our fire-free dates. That's coming up. We're 11 days counting down till we start fire-free this year. It begins on May 1st. And if you need the dates and locations, you can visit the fire-free website. And in there, you'll find flyers for Deschutes in Jefferson County. And we also just recently concluded our defensible space class. It was a virtual class that went off quite successfully. We had a lot of folks register for that class, more than what we could accommodate for. But looking at those numbers, we've decided to put on that second course. And what we're looking at right now is May 20th for that second course. We'll be offering it to the people that were on the wait list that was generated from the first class. And we'll offer it to them, and then look for, in the coming days, a email that comes out with a flyer for our second class. Our Firewise communities continue to grow out there. We've got a couple communities. We'll be doing the assessment for Sundance here shortly. We recently concluded an assessment for the cliffs in Redmond, so hopefully they continue on their process, and we'll be helping them through that process and hopefully adding them to the community of Firewise communities and sites that we have here in Central Oregon. Let's see if there's anything else here we want to make sure we cover. I believe that's everything that we're going to be covering as far as a monthly update. There is one thing to note. We've turned to prescribed fire season. So if you are interested or people are asking you about prescribed fire, where they're happening, they can always go to centraloregonfire.org. And they'll be able to take a look at the fires that are being planned. There's maps and resources there so they can see where those prescribed fires are being planned, and then also find resources for any smoke impacts that they may be receiving. You can also sign up at the web page you can sign up for text alerts through the web page there as well to receive those daily texts when there are fires that are happening. With that, I think we're ready to turn it over to OSU for their talk about the extension program.
We bin our programs into some goals, and a big one is our agriculture, food systems, and gardening. We have small farms, specialty crops, faculty, irrigation specialists, livestock agents in Central Oregon, helping producers find value-added products, build efficient irrigation systems, do cover crop nutrient management, pest management work, integrated pest management. And our Master Gardener program is also in there, and that's a great opportunity for community members to learn gardening skills. Amy Jo Detweiler has worked with y'all on the fire-resistant plant guide and xeriscaping guides. And again, our ag experiment stations are here. We have a big youth outreach, so 4-H, and it's not just chickens and pigs and cows in 4-H. You can do robotics, you can do sewing, there's STEM clubs, dog, shooting sports, anything you can think of. It's really about building leadership and positive youth development experiences. And again, Oregon Outdoor School and our Juntos program are all part of this component. And Juntos really helps our Latinx families navigate high school graduation and college higher education readiness. And so far, all of our Juntos participants, 100% high school graduation rate. So really effective wraparound services there. We'll dig into this a little bit more, resilient productive ecosystems, but our forestry and natural resources program and our fire program are part of this. There's also the Oregon Master Naturalist program, which builds volunteer capacity. And I think there's gonna be a potential Oregon Master Naturalist program in Central Oregon this summer. There's also one up in the Gorge, which I wanna take. And you can do a coast one or Klamath Lake. And our wildlife habitat and watershed science support falls under here as well. Family community health, lifelong health and well-being, master food preserver. We have a hotline during Thanksgiving. It's off the hook. People learning how to cook turkeys and hopefully not fry themselves. So we offer a lot of food safety preservation, master food preserver, another volunteer program. SNAP Ed, so this is education for SNAP eligible families, our food supplemental nutrition assistance program. So they're in the schools, they're helping parents, they do grocery tours, how to shop on a budget. We also do a lot of emergency preparedness work. Glenda Hyde is very active in building an online Cascadia subduction zone education module. So when you're not worried about fire season, you can worry about the Cascadia subduction earthquake and learn about how to prepare for that. And I think they're becoming more engaged in smoke preparedness in communities. Our faculty up in Hood River and Wasco County worked really hard last year to help migrant farm workers gain access, PPE, and information regarding COVID protection. And they didn't have the outbreaks that Washington orchards had. So I'm really proud of them. And then our family and community health folks also work with food pantry initiatives. And check out the Food Hero website for some fun recipes, healthy recipes. So in addition to being able to call our office, meet with folks in person, we have a whole catalog of resources. We have the Ask an Expert tool, so you can ask your question and get an actual faculty member to answer it rather than just the Google and unvetted resources. Not today, but when we're back in moderate or low risk, you can come visit our office and check out the demonstration garden. And I'm so thankful, as you know, we do everything in partnership. So Project Wildfire, and I see Tony DeBone's on front and center of my list, but our county commissioners, I know I saw Patty, and our active neighborhood catalysts are all critical to getting all of this work done. So I am gonna let Ari and Thomas dig in a little more into their programs and stop sharing. But before I do, are there any questions about non-forestry or fire extension services that we offer? No, great. Well, thank you.
I'll just say that I always want to do more with the preservation and cooking and local food production. It's always exciting to hear about the extension programs and what the opportunities are out there too.
And really connecting that farm to table, I think that food system web is really cool. You know, Lauren Kellogg is a master food preserver, so you should chat with him sometime.
Well, I always want to do it. I just think about it. I don't have time, but yeah.
I know. Someday.
Yep, someday.
Everybody, I think I'll go first so we can wrap up with Ariel and her introduction to the new fire program. Not sure if everybody sees my presentation slide.
Nope, don't see it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I don't see a share screen at all. Oh, there we go.
There you go. Got it.
Well, now I just see your screen, your whole desktop with all the windows.
Yeah, I got it. There?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
All the Mac users are having trouble.
Yeah, I know. Over soon. How about now?
Yes.
Cool.
Excellent.
I'll just jump right into it. So yeah, I'm Thomas Stokely. Took over for Nicole's position back in July 2020. So it's been quite an interesting year so far, relocating, starting a new career level position during COVID times, but we've been adaptable. Much of the programming I've been doing has been online, but have been able to get out to some properties, which has been really exciting, and working with various collaborative groups, making contacts throughout the area. So just a little bit of my background. I grew up in the Missouri Ozarks, and I'd like to say my outdoor education started pretty early, growing up on a horse farm, hanging out on the rivers, doing stream cleanups. My dad was a horticulturalist and an ag educator, actually vocational ag educator. My mother was a horse trainer. We had a stables. So, learned a lot about animal husbandry, forage management, water quality stuff, and actually had the great opportunity to begin my pyro lifestyle pretty early on, conducting prescribed burns with the management objective to promote wildlife habitat, specifically for deer, quail, turkey, etc. So was actually pretty young when I first started. You can see planting trees here and also burning trees. So yeah, that really sparked my interest in the natural resources field. So I went on to the University of Missouri to study natural resources with a focus on environmental science and land management. So did a lot of research on some forestry aspects of natural resources, worked on what they call these mariflux sites, which is sort of carbon cycling, did some watershed research as well, and studied soils. Really wanted to get into wildlife habitat and how management practices affect biodiversity in general. So I came to OSU in 2010, and that was actually just for a master's. And I didn't have I had an advisor, but Joan Hagar with the USGS, she didn't have any funding, had little funding at least to get me started. And I soon met Dr. Matthew Betts with the OSU College of Forestry, and he had this big project on the effects of herbicide use in forest plantations on wildlife habitat and biodiversity. So we had this idea to build a bunch of deer and elk exclosures, and also, interestingly enough, large bird exclosures to look at, if you remove those animals, how the vegetation responds across these different management practices. So the whole goal for my master's was to study if you use herbicides to remove to remove some of the competing brush species so that you can grow crop trees better, how that affects the way that deer and elk browse your trees and also eat the regenerating broadleaf species. So that actually involved me cutting a bunch of line in the Oregon Coast Range to build fences. It was sort of like I was cutting some fire line. So built these pretty substantial exclosures. Like I said, the whole focus was deer and elk, as well as songbirds and their foraging strategies, particularly insectivory. So it's kind of this cool, like, weird hyperdimensional project where we were just looking at all these different data. I think I jumped in like head first and got pretty lost in the weeds of the Oregon Coast Range, but that soon became a PhD, and I took on some teaching, had some international experience as well. And it's really great to be a part of the OSU College of Forestry family, and continued on to do my postdoc, just wrapping up papers. And, lo and behold, this position became available, and I thought it would be a perfect fit, considering a lot of my research at the Oregon State College of Forestry had focused on, making sure this information is available to landowners, making sure that the science is communicated in a way that, can help inform management decisions when it comes to reforestation in the Oregon Coast Range. So we did field tours, had a lot of great experience collaborating with extension folks, people with forest industry. So, that was it. The intensive forest management study is what we call it, the project that I worked on for my master's and PhD. And it was huge, you know, pretty much 100 kilometer, however many miles that is, 40, 50 something miles of the Oregon Coast Range with these research sites. It involved collaboration with the forest industry, National Council for Air and Stream Improvement, Oregon Forest Industries Council, ODF, and yeah, our landscape ecology lab at OSU. So as I mentioned, I had the opportunity to be involved in a lot of different symposia that were geared more towards land managers and practitioners, as well as, you know, symposia that were geared towards academia. So it's sort of that whole suite of working with, you know, the ivory tower types to working with the folks with the boots on the ground. I was able to, in 2019, help organize the early successional forest symposium at OSU. So that was a really good experience, and I think helped me a lot in preparing for this position. Outside of my work in academia and forest research, I decided, you know, I was really missing being on fires and being a part of what that is. So, and I've also always had a desire to kind of make it official rather than just being those sort of blue jeans, handkerchief style burning out in the woods, you know, on private land. I wanted to get involved on a more professional level. So I attended some treks events, was able to volunteer with the Nature Conservancy doing multi-agency burns in the Willamette Valley, down in Ashland as well, in the Ashland watershed and elsewhere. So that was a lot of good experience. And so I do have my FF2 qualifications. Do need to do my PAC test, so I can't go on any prescribed burns anytime soon. But yeah, looking forward to hopefully getting involved in some prescribed burns throughout Central Oregon, at least from an ecological perspective, and trying to connect sort of what we do with Forestry and Natural Resources Extension and how prescribed burning will influence wildlife habitat and forest health. And, you know, I also branched out to work in Washington with the United States Forest Service and Pacific Northwest Research Station on a study looking at variable density thinning on elk habitat over in the Sispus River watershed of the Randall Ranger District up in Washington. So that's been a lot of good experience to do some work in the West Cascades. So right now, you know, I guess my experience in Oregon is Oregon Coast Range, Washington West Cascades, and then now throughout Central Oregon. And, you know, as a hunter, I had spent quite a bit of time out in the dry side forest, you know, scouting and just trying to get familiar with the ecology of it, and always been fascinated with these forests. And I think now more than ever, we've got some really major decisions to make when it comes to the management of the land and how we interact with it as a society. So regarding, you know, what we do as forestry and natural resources extension agents, really it's sort of founded in, you know, science-based education. So making sure that the information that is coming out of research, you know, whether it be academia or agencies, making sure that information is available to the public in a way that they can understand and apply it on their land. Beyond, you know, land managers, you know, I think that I'd like to say we don't just work with landowners, but rather, you know, broad suite of adult and youth learners. And I'm really excited for this position to actually be able to work with youth early on, something I've kind of always wanted to do when it comes to, you know, passing on either our failures or the things that we've learned that work well onto future generations. I think is really important. So I've started a lot of work with collaboratives throughout the area, and I'll kind of highlight that here in the next slide. But, you know, more specifically, we kind of provide technical support so that people, so that we can help inform folks' management decisions on their property. It's not that we are advisors. We don't technically provide any service of like, it's not like I'm a consultant telling somebody what they should do on their property, rather than making sure the information is available for them so that they can make better decisions that support their values for the land. And, it's, only 10% of my time goes towards like scholarly activities, including research, but I really find that I think the applied research is the most important. And that's sort of my one of my strengths would be in the applied research realm, making sure that if we're doing management practices, is it founded in science, and what information can we glean from that management to make better future decisions. So overall, main focus of our Forestry and Natural Resources Extension program is forest ecosystem health and how that pertains to societal values for nature. And obviously, values for nature really vary, and I think Central Oregon is a great example of this, and the wide variety of different values folks have for the land, whether it's somebody that likes to hunt deer and elk, more on, or folks that might like large trees or prefer to manage their property for wood production, as well as the other myriad of benefits, health benefits that nature has to society, ecosystem functioning when it comes to maybe people valuing pollinators on their property, or just intrinsic value of wanting to go birding and just appreciate the sights and sounds of nature. But this all kind of boils down to how these things relate to the values that we have and how our management of the land influences, the relative, I guess, values of nature for humankind. And so, my areas of expertise in this field, a little bit geared more towards forest and wildlife ecology, I think is one of the reasons they took me on. Nicole has a lot of background in wildlife and was kind of their go-to wildlife person. So I think they really wanted somebody that could follow in that and provide the wildlife expertise within Forestry and Natural Resources Extension. Like I mentioned, applied research, I think, is one of my biggest strengths when it comes to, how we gear research to be better suited to land managers and management decisions, and not just these, sort of academic questions of the meaning of life and all things. So, I've got a lot of experience, at least working with forest managers in the Oregon Coast Range, and talking about different practices and really studying how a variety of forest management practices affect not only forest health, forest productivity, but biodiversity in general. So, and I keep bringing up this whole human values thing. Well, that kind of boils down to what we consider ecosystem services. So they're relative, provisioning of, like, say, goods, regulation services like climate regulation, water quality, and that for human beings. Personally speaking, I kind of think more of like, how do we work in concert, not necessarily how nature can benefit us, but how we can benefit nature. So, my biggest passion, I think, is is geared towards wildlife conservation, but that doesn't just include the fuzzy critters, but overall biodiversity. And I think something that, just having gone through the whole rigmarole of academia, science communication, I think, is most important for me. It's not enough to just write some papers and have them cited like 10 or 15 times, but making sure that those publications are available to the public. And, I'm not an expert on all things. I kind of started my master's, and Matt Betts, he's, one of these brainiacs. And I was like, I want to be one of those people that sort of knows about everything. And he's like, you're going to have a really hard time. And sure enough, I've had a really hard time. So it's hard to really get all of the information in one brain. So we have this network of other experts in forestry and natural resource extension. So I always have a lot of go-tos when it comes to maybe insect questions, or could be a soils or water quality question. Fire is a good example. Ariel had, been out here a bit longer than I, and has a lot of knowledge. So whenever I kind of get stumped on a question, I will turn to her, and sure, it probably annoys her sometimes, but that's what we're here for. And, beyond forestry and natural resources extension, gaining collaboration with others really helps, and helps to kind of tie in all that information together, because we all sort of have our own experience, education, thoughts, and etc. So I am really excited about collaborating with folks around the region. Excuse me for acronyms, because acronyms have been driving me crazy since I moved here. Like, I just am in meetings and I'm always just writing down these acronyms and then never figure out what they really are until like 2 meetings later. But so part of my service area, I guess I should have mentioned this first in the first slide, but I work with in Crook, Deschutes, Jefferson counties, as well as the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. So I like to consider them a collaborator. The Deschutes Collaborative Forest Project, Ochiko Forest Restoration Collaborative, the Deschutes Trails Coalition, Central Oregon Forest Stewardship Foundation, U.S. Forest Service, and NRCS. I'm really surprised that I actually remembered all those acronyms. So, yay. Been working with some watershed councils, mostly with the Middle Deschutes so far, so that I can kind of, it's been a little bit, I think there's a lot more demand in Deschutes County, so I'm trying to tie into Jefferson County as well, and Crook County, making sure that that people know my services are available. So working with watershed councils up there, soil and water conservation districts. Been really excited to be part of these shared stewardship conferences, and hopefully, I've been in some of the Joint Chiefs projects meetings with the Buttes to Basins and the lower Crooked, or upper Crooked, I mean. So yeah, those are all very exciting collaborations. So, in all this, it's just really confusing of like, where do I fit in to each one of these collaboratives? I certainly can't do it all, but I see my role fitting in when it comes to the applied research. Having that connection to OSU is really important, and making sure that a lot of these decisions are founded in science. So making sure that science is available, and public outreach as well, just helping to raise information about why we're doing the things that we do out in the forest. And Ariel and I are give a talk to Century West Neighborhood Association and I guess the greater city of Bend on fire ecology. So I'm really excited about that. So, why are we seeing smoke? Why are we seeing the marked trees? Why are they leaving these logs that should be removed because it could be a fire hazard? That sort of thing. And when I say, and I guess the answer to that is for wildlife, or you could probably just wait and see what our talks are about on Thursday if you'd like. So also I think conflict resolution, as I would like to think that I'm trying to be as objective as I can. So it's really great. I want to kind of be the person that helps bring the environmental community with the more forest management minded community together, so that we can come up with sort of common, or at least find some common ground when it comes to management. Landowner support is a really big one. I think I'm probably using up quite a bit of time. I don't know how much time we have here, but landowner support is one of the big ones. So far I've been to, I think, about 8 or 9 properties. Really like to go on a lot more. Obviously with COVID, it's been difficult, but a variety of information and services we provide to landowners, anywhere from forest management to finding somewhere to send wood products, wildlife conservation and restoration, and helping connect landowners with cost share incentives. So when it comes to education and outreach, as I mentioned earlier, youth and adult learners is sort of our target audience. I guess, theoretically be on you know, provide some sort of classes with undergraduate students, but the focus is generally the public, including adult and youth learners. Right now, it's been mostly restricted to webinars. You know, one day, hopefully we'll have some field tours out there in the woods. I've heard that we might be having some this summer potentially. But one of the main ways that we communicate our information would be is this Life on the Dry Side magazine, a work that's a quarterly publication that we send out. I think a lot of you, some of you that I see here are on that list. But if you'd like more information, please, I'll share my information. Ari and I will share our information so you can get signed up. And this Woodland Fish and Wildlife publication is really great. Central Oregon Ag News has, you know, a variety of ways that we communicate. And I think one focus that I would like to get involved in would be emergency preparedness. You know, future project ideas, at this point, it's been really difficult to come up with projects because of COVID and the lack of really being able to get out there with agencies and with landowners. But there's a potential to do some trails mapping in conjunction with some of the treatments they're going to be doing up on Garrison Butte, the Garrison Buttes area. Might be working with some high school students on creating demonstration habitat piles for wildlife habitat, you know, and in lieu of coarse wood, you know, so where coarse wood is missing from the forest, creating some of these habitat piles can sort of promote structure for certain species that require wood for part of their life cycle. You know, I'd like to really follow up on Nicole and Ken Bevis's publication on wildlife friendly fuels treatments and sort of see some of that applied on the ground in more of a holistic way, rather than just with the objectives of reducing fuels, but promoting wildlife habitat. As I mentioned, really want to get involved on some prescribed burns and how that relates to forest health and biodiversity. And I think one of the biggest concerns right now from a wildlife perspective is mule deer decline. So starting to get involved with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Forest Service on some of those challenges. So yeah, with that, I'd like to pass the mic on to Ariel, and she can tell us more about the fire program. And then we'll have questions afterwards.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. If you can stop your screen share, I can, there we go. Oh no, still screen sharing. There we go. Great. All right. So hopefully you all can see that. How's that looking? Thanks, everyone. Good morning. So yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about the new Extension Service Fire Program. And this was a program that was created from a 2019 legislative ask to create this new program that's housed within OSU Forestry and Natural Resources Extension. And of course, at the time, we did not know what a big year 2020 was going to be for wildfire in Oregon, and then also a worldwide pandemic. So it's been interesting to say the least. And a lot of the team was brought on board towards the middle to end of last year. I started in November, and then we rounded out the entire program, hiring the last 2 folks this January. And so, let's see. So my name's Ariel Cowan, and I'm the regional fire specialist for the central area. That includes Central Oregon. And so it's been a pretty exciting opportunity for me to join this brand new team. Of course, you know, with any new team, we've been trying to figure out what kind of role we play and putting the program together. But it's been an exciting journey for me to get to this point. I got my master's degree at OSU And in the College of Forestry, my background is more in forestry and forest ecology, and had a passion for fire ecology as well. And so actually a lot of my research was done in Central Oregon at Pringle Falls Experimental Forest, which is outside of Lapine. And so I was focusing a lot more on how the different levels of soil burning can affect soil microbes and soil nutrients, and how that translates to affecting forest recovery after fire. So this is just an image from one of my field sites. And so, you know, that was actually done through experimenting with a prescribed burn out there at Pringle Falls. And hopefully some of you are familiar with Pringle Falls. It's a really beautiful place. And actually, that was in 2013, and Alex Enna, who many of you are familiar with, he actually led that burn. So that was also my first introduction to some of the important people who work around Central Oregon in fire. So from there, I also was doing work helping to manage a wildland fire lab at Humboldt State University and a forest measurements lab, working in tree ring analysis and fire history. And then I realized I really wanted to come back to Oregon. So I was working for Oregon Department of Forestry as a monitoring specialist and a stewardship forester out of the sister's office. And that was a really fantastic yet brief experience. And then OSU Extension swooped me up. And that was, you know, I see that as my chance now to get into science communication and outreach, and be able to work on a broader scale of getting some of the good messages out about fire, and also being able to answer questions about fire preparedness and things like that. So I just want to introduce you to the rest of the fire team. And each team member brings a unique background, which is really fantastic. I've been learning a ton from our team members. And so we have a program manager, Carrie Berger, and a state fire specialist, Daniel Lavelle, and they're stationed in Corvallis on OSU campus. And then we also have Aaron Groth, who's on the Coast Range, who brings a ton of experience working with Latinx communities, with marginalized communities, and has more experience with pyrogeography. Then we have Amanda Rao, who's in the Willamette Valley and Cascades, and she has a ton of experience as a burn boss for the Nature Conservancy and has worked with the Forest Service. And we also have Chris Adlam, who has done a lot of work with tribes and is extremely enthusiastic about getting more prescribed fire on the ground. And there's myself in the central region. And so now you can see how big my service area is. So it actually includes all or parts of Jefferson, Crook, Deschutes, Wasco, Wheeler, Grant, Klamath, and Lake counties. So once we are doing a lot more in-person programming, I'll probably be on the road a lot, but really looking forward to doing a lot more work throughout the entire area and meeting more of the local partners. So then in the Northeast, we have John Reza, who has done a lot of work in Colorado with their extension program. So it's been fascinating to learn from him about, just the larger goals of extension, and it being more about impact as opposed to just product driven, and how to put publications together and how we work with partners. And then Katie Wolstein is in the Southeast, and it's been really great to work with her because she is unique to this team. She is our rangeland fire specialist. So of course I have a lot of range and ag in my service area. And so it's been great to work with her and learn about how we can work with the range community, for example, on fire-related topics. And, you know, fire doesn't just stop in the forest, of course. So, you know, there's folks in my service area who could also be interested in learning about fire preparedness throughout the range community. So overall, the fire program's goals are to empower people to live well with fire. And so that would be through fostering healthy communities and landscapes, including forests and rangelands and even urban areas. And doing this through encouraging reduction in wildfire risk. And so our vision is that communities would recognize the natural role of fire and are empowered to prepare for, respond to, and recover from it. But also that home management, land management, collaboration, and the safe and effective use of fire could all be used as tools to proactively reduce wildfire risk. And that locally adapted solutions would support both people's values and ecosystem health. And referring to people's values, that would also include those who have been historically not marginalized. So how do we do this? Well, so our program would use education and outreach, whether it be through webinars, workshops, trainings, outreach materials and publications, using social media and news interviews. I'm excited to do a lot more field tours and site visits, but mostly collaborating with local partners. So we want to provide assistance where it's requested for landscape scale projects on this topic, and that it be based in science, but also based in a lot of the fantastic local knowledge that already exists here, but that it be specific to this area. And so this is a map of the many forest and public land collaboratives and partnerships around the state. And so this is just a great immediate way that many of us have been able to plug in. For myself, I've been working with the Deschutes Forest Collaborative and the Ochuco Forest Collaborative, and then also in the southern part of my region, the Klamath Lake Health Partnership, Klamath Lake Forest Health Partnership. And, you know, those are just some examples. There are many other partnerships and collaboratives out there, and that we're not limited to working with collaboratives, of course, but it's just been a great way to start to work with local partners. And so now I just want to give you a couple of examples of some of the work that we've been doing. So already we've been getting out there, putting out a virtual webinar series. So this is Wildfire Wednesdays for the FireWare, Fire Prepared outreach effort. And we've, as you can see from the timeline, we've already been putting out a lot of these webinars, and they're recorded. So you can go to the website if you want to view any of these webinars, but you can also sign up for any of the future ones. And the one that we have tomorrow, Ready, Set, Go, includes how to create a 72-hour go bag and topics like that, what these different evacuation levels mean. But we started it off with trying to encourage the work to be done in preparedness be at a community level, because a lot of the science has shown that some of the most effective ways to encourage people to do wildfire risk mitigation is at a community scale. So it's been exciting to already get involved in this webinar series, and it's our first time, so I'm looking forward to us rolling it out again on a yearly basis and improve it each time. And a lot of the work has been done in collaboration with agencies and various organizations around Oregon. So this is a state level webinar series, and we're really trying to make the information applicable to landowners, homeowners, the general public all around the state, which is a tricky thing because that's a really, really big audience. And at the same time, I see the really important need for local level information, local level webinars and workshops. And so it's been great to work with Boone and Ed on their webinar workshop that Boone had mentioned just before. We've also been working on a prescribed fire curriculum. So this was a request from several of the agency partners. The base of this prescribed fire curriculum was actually developed by ODF. So we're working with them and the state fire marshal to update this curriculum with the hopes of us closely watching this current legislative session and seeing how that may lead into a change in opening up for more opportunities for prescribed fire on public land, but that we be ready to go once, you know, fingers crossed that there are some positive changes that, you know, on a state level, that then there's ways that we can train landowners in how to do prescribed fire, and that there be an outdoor live fire learn and burn event that's a component of that curriculum. So a couple of other examples I'm going to run through. Actually, Thomas already mentioned this, that we had a free webinar series, Managing Eastern Oregon Forests, and I plugged into that by talking about slash management and fuel management in general. Actually, Nicole had mentioned the fire resistant plant guide that Amy Jo Detweiler has led, and we're doing an update to that plant guide. And so that should be out later this year. The deadline for that got pushed back a little bit, but look out for that when that's coming out. And actually, Thomas already mentioned this, that on Thursday evening, we're going to be, and Boone is going to be there too, giving simultaneous presentations on different fire topics for, and this has been opened up to all of Ben. So there's multiple HOAs who are going to be attending this. And now you can, there's the link as well if you want to check it out or share it. And actually, Thomas had already mentioned this too, that we're trying to plug in with providing where it's needed, outreach and education for the recently funded Joint Chiefs projects, you know, whether it's beach to basins, or for me in the southern part of my service area, there's Lake County was also awarded a grant. So it's been pretty exciting, a lot of the work that's being done around Central Oregon and a lot of the opportunities that are shaping up for this area. And so, yeah, as Boone mentioned earlier, this wildfire home protection strategies that I've been working with Boone and Ed on, we already had one on the 15th and we have another one on the 20th. And then I'm doing a similar kind of workshop in Chiloquin on May 1st. And then I've also been trying to help out where, you know, where my help has been requested with community wildfire protection plans in different parts of my service area. More specifically in Jefferson County, they had asked me to participate on this and also the natural hazard mitigation plan for that county. And you know, it's been really interesting. There's a ton of assistance out there for the different CWPPs around Deschutes. But it's been really interesting to see how in different parts of my service area, there aren't as many people who participate. And so those might be places where there might be a bit more of a need, and that they might ask for you know, me to participate. But otherwise, that's just another example of work that I would be doing. And so I wanted to just post this up here that all education happens on Indigenous land. I'm working with both the Confederate tribes of the Warm Springs and the Klamath tribe on land management, land acknowledgement, and also working with them recently, connecting with their cultural resource and natural resource representatives on what kind of topics they might want to see through extension programming. So it's been really great to work with those communities and very much recognize how they're sovereign nations. Overall, for both Thomas and I, and actually for all of Extension, for what Nicole was talking about, we seek to find a way to be added value to all of the great work that is already being done. And it's great that I work with Thomas a lot, and we're often asking, okay, so where might our services be needed? And so around Central Oregon, there's just a ton of great work that you're all doing. So definitely not trying to come in here and try to change any of the way things are being done. Instead, we want to be added value and provide support wherever support is needed. So how are we doing on time? Because I would love for us to be able to ask this question to the group.
Yeah, we can take a couple more minutes.
All right, great. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with menti.com. So actually, I'm gonna post the link in the chat, but there's another way you can do this. You can hold your phone up to this QR code, take a picture of it, and it should send you to the website. Or there's, you can just go to www.menti.com and put in that code. Here is the link. And so on this website, when you get there, you'll see that it's asking the question, what topics would you like to see covered in extension programming? And so just giving you some ideas of what topics that you might want to see. Sure, you can write as much as you want, things that you might be interested in, but could be something related to forest health or fuels reduction or wildlife. These are just some examples, just some idea starters. But let's actually go and take a look if anyone's been responding yet. All right, and what's great is
people just chime in too if they want. I see Dean has his hand raised.
That's a good point. People can just chime in, but I wanted there to be a way that folks can, wow, it's all right, it's coming in. Ideas can just be shared anonymously. If you don't feel like speaking up, then you can just type it in. It's a nice, easy way to do that. But people can chime in as well if they want to come off of mute. Dean, was your question related to this?
Yes. Good morning, Thomas, Ariel, Nicole. My question, I think I'd direct it to Thomas. Quick question. Do you work with Forest Service fuel reduction planning for the wildland urban interface forest management? In particular, I'm thinking I'm interested in leaving a mix of open spaces and groups of trees versus just even spacing of the trees.
Excellent.
So Dean, oh yeah, Thomas, you go first.
yeah, it was really great. I'm glad to be connected with you again. So after I visited your property and checked out all that lodgepole, I've recently been involved with the Deschutes Collaborative Forest Project and helping to draft recommendations on managing lodgepole pine. And so we're actually kind of in sort of the final stages of finishing that draft, getting it to the collaborative for, you know, full review from all the partners. And so, yeah, a lot of that is focused on sort of what the historical conditions of lodgepole were, and how we might manage to promote those historical conditions, which would be a little bit more of that patchy, gappy, clumpy structure that you're talking about, not just even an even age or even structure. So some of that is pertaining to the wildland urban interface, specifically in your zone where you've got a lot of lodgepole, and how you might manage to reduce the densities of that to ensure that, you know, there's both forest health and fire protection. So yeah, look forward to those recommendations. And if you want to be involved, you can certainly contact me if you'd like to provide some input on your perspectives as a landowner in the WUI. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Great, thanks for answering that, Thomas. Awesome, great. I appreciate that people have been participating in this and humoring me and trying out menti.com if you haven't tried it before. So yeah, this is great. Looks like there's interest in hearing more about wildfire history and how it shaped the Cascades, wildfire in general, fire-resistant planting. Yes, like I said earlier, that we're really looking forward to finishing the updates to that fire-resistant plant guide that I know a lot of people use. And so look out for that coming out soon. Ways to increase community involvement in all aspects of fire. Yeah, I think that that's definitely a big goal for us. And so outreach is definitely integral to that. More about fire-resistant planting, wildlife habitat protection. Yeah, so that's been a really great thing how Thomas and I work together. I understand that sometimes there's this impression that with doing wildfire risk mitigation, with doing fuel reduction treatments, that can't be done in a way that can protect wildlife habitat, and that's not necessarily the case. Actually, you know, I've learned a lot from Nicole on this and the publications that she's participated on, that there is a way that we can find that we can reach both of those goals. And I think that is going to be a continuing big topic as we communicate with the public and with homeowners and landowners. So it's kind of, it's a way that Thomas and I kind of like work together. There's a lot of synergy there. And climate change, biodiversity, forest health, how to extinguish burn piles. Yes, so really interesting how there's, it's been so dry this spring, and actually all around the state, they're finding that we're having twice as many fire starts as we would for this time of the year. And so some of our collaborators have asked for us to be putting together more outreach about best management practices for debris pile burning and information related to that. And so that's something that we've been working on. But like I said, there's already a lot of great material already out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes it's just a matter of connecting people. We want to be connectors. So perhaps if people are asking for that kind of help, and that's already out there, or we know the right people who have the answer to those questions or have those materials, then we can provide the connection for those groups. Great. And so I think we have a way of going to the next one, Zoom scroll. So if all of you want to humor me one more time, I would really like to ask, what groups should extension programming be geared towards? And so there's a lot of examples out there. Should we be focusing on just the wildland urban interface, focusing on small woodland owners or large woodland owners? You can go back to that same website using menti.com or with the code up here at the top of the screen, or re-click the link in the chat if you had clicked out of that website. And to answer this question of what groups do you think we should really be gearing our programming towards? Anyone having any trouble with getting to that second page? All right, looks like it's working. And once again, you can just unmute yourself if you want to just chime in instead of using the website. But I really appreciate getting a lot of this feedback. You know, there's some other ideas could be, if people want to see more extension programming geared towards people in urban areas, visitors, tourists, home builders, real estate groups. I mean, you name it. If you have ideas, we'd love to hear what your ideas are. Great. Yep, small landowners. Actually, I thought about that with the workshop that I've been putting together with Ed and Boone. How I wonder if it could be useful to have one that's geared towards small woodland owners and then one that's geared more towards large landowners. That's something that could be in the future, an idea. Local governments, tourism interests, urban dwellers who have concerns about forests and fire. Yep, and that could include recreationalists. New residents to the area. That's a really tricky one. If anyone has ideas of how to reach out to new residents, that's definitely something that we would love to be able to work with them. All right. Well, people can keep putting in their ideas. I really appreciate all of this information. Thankfully, this is all saved, especially, or including the last question. And so I will be sharing this with my team and with Thomas and Nicole. So once again, I appreciate this feedback. So I'm just going to go back into here and say, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak to everyone here at Project Wildfire. Looking forward to attending all the future meetings of Project Wildfire and being able to work with many of you. So you can find out more information from our website and more information about the fire program within that website as well. And yeah, I just want to open it up broadly to questions. It looks like there might have been questions in the chat.
Yeah, and we'll take maybe one or two questions and then save about 10 minutes for any kind of roundtable update. So anybody with questions, I don't know if there were any actual questions.
I didn't see any
in the chat.
Great. Well, if there aren't any other presentation or any other questions about our presentation or about extension programming, then yeah, I just want to say thanks, Ed and Boone, and yeah, looking forward to working with everybody.
Yeah, thank you all.
Well, thanks, Nicole, Thomas, Ariel. That was really great to get an update on what y'all are working on. It looks like there's some opportunities to work in partnership with OSU Extension in a variety of ways. And so I would encourage you all to be in touch, especially with Thomas and Ariel, on other ideas as they build out their programs in the coming months. So thanks again for joining us today, Thomas and Ariel. So with that, I am going to, notice that Thomas is putting his email and contact information in the chat, and I assume Ariel can do that as well. So y'all can capture that. And I would just ask then for the remaining minutes that we have, about 10, 12 minutes here, if any of y'all have updates that you would like to share out to the group. I noticed that, and I will just start off by noting that David Mormon had one. I don't know, David, if you want to start us off with that, just also verbalizing that quick update.
Yeah, thanks. If everybody will look in the chat, I've posted a link to a Red Cross site. Normally this time of year, Red Cross would be visiting homes in targeted neighborhoods, working with local fire departments to install smoke detectors and also educate families on home fire safety. We've modified our program a little bit this year, so we can't go into people's homes, but we are scheduling appointments with folks to have a education session, brief education session with them about home fire safety and helping them to develop an escape plan for a fire emergency. And then also if they need smoke detectors, we can schedule that for a future date when it's safe to do so. So we want to continue that program. So I hope folks will look at that link. And if you have a network or a newsletter or a group that you're communicating with or a homeowners association, if you will share that link, and we would encourage anybody who's interested to make an appointment, and we will follow up. And thanks for this opportunity to share that.
Great, thank you, David. Kevin, I'm going to call on you next. I think definitely want to let people know about your new position with the Forest Service, and then any updates you might have.
Well, thanks, Ed. If you guys don't know, Alex Robertson, who was the fire staff officer for Coffness, has been moved up to the regional fire director for Oregon and Washington. And it's official. I'm officially filling the job behind him. So I'll be the Coffness fire staff officer, and I'll be attending these meetings. If you don't know, I've been around for a little while. I've been here in Central Oregon anyways for 26 of my 31 fire seasons. So I am fairly local and fairly knowledgeable about this ground anyways. And then just for us, update, you know, obviously we're well into prescribed burning, especially on the Deschutes. Right now we're looking for some opportunities over on the Ochiko here pretty soon, but I would expect this to continue for a little while. If we don't get rain here pretty soon, though, we'll be transitioning out of prescribed fire season into wildfire season, because it's just right on that edge with where we're at as far as days since significant rainfall. So we're well within prescription for what we're doing right now. We expect to be in that for a little bit longer. But again, we all need some rain here pretty soon in the springtime, or we're going to have a long summer ahead of us. And that's all I really got.
Thanks. Thanks, Kevin. And then just wanted to note that Gordon Foster couldn't make it representing ODF, but he did ask us to just pass along that they're currently recognizing that fire danger is moderate, but moving towards high in the lower elevations. So along the same lines as what Kevin just shared, they're starting to bring on their seasonal staff with 10 personnel coming on May 3rd. And over the past week, they have had 2 escape slash pile burns, one at 15 acres and another at a half an acre. So just a reminder that they're really pushing to make sure that burn piles are out. And I believe that statewide, they're asking for people to not burn slash piles. So would share that. And then Dean, I see your hands up if you've got a quick item to share from UDRC.
Yeah. Upper Deschutes River Communities Update. There's a noticeably increased fire awareness, and our defensible space reimbursement program is a big hit this year. More than twice the number of property owners have signed up compared to last year. And the incentive is working. Property owners are spending on average much more than the reimbursement amount that we're offering. And now we only have a handful of positions left to exhaust our reserve grant funds for the season. Although we still have low-income, senior, and disabled assistance for property owners. Thank you. Oh, and more prescribed fire if you can squeeze it in. Thanks.
Thanks, Dean. Anybody else that would like to share an update? Either just come off mute at this point, or use the raise hand function if you want to.
I would like to just comment. Boone had brought up earlier that we've done a lot of work to try to engage the neighborhood of Sundance, where I live. It's been a bit of a heavy lift because we don't have a homeowners association. So what Boone did is he created a map and pulled all the addresses of everyone in the neighborhood. And we sent a letter to all those residents saying we want to put together an event and start moving toward Firewise community. And we got an impressive response. We have over 20 households now that are actively engaged and want to be a part of the process. And I believe, hopefully, there was an email from Ross that he might need to reschedule, but we're hoping to do the assessment today. The big push was to try to get that done in time for Fire Free. I don't know that we're going to get the assessment out there and work completed in time for Fire Free, but at least we're making progress because a lot of work that Boone has put in. So very grateful to Boone for all of that work.
74. Great. Thanks, Oliver. Ray Meow, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Great presentation by OSU. Just let you know, Woodside Ranch, we are again doing our fire-free fuels cleanup. 74 homeowners have signed up, which is great. And we really want to thank the county commissioners for giving us a grant again this year, which is really, again, helping a lot to allow us to do this. Hopefully the pandemic will go away, people start playing the lottery, and we'll have more next year. But thank you all so very much for that.
Thanks for that update, Ray. And yeah, I would note that I believe the commissioners have tentatively decided on upping that amount by a quite significant amount. We'll have more on that as budgets are finalized, but we're looking at possibly up to $100,000 in those discretionary lottery funds to encourage work like that in the neighborhoods in conjunction with Fire Free or even some other times of the year, whatever works for those communities. Commissioner Adair, did you have something to share?
Yes, every dollar that we spend helping is so worth it. To me, it's a total win-win. And I have given out about 1,000 of those Fire-Free cards because they do have the 10 rules on the backside. Realtors particularly appreciate those cards because they're selling to new homeowners if they haven't lived here in Central Oregon before. So really, I would get more cards to the realtors. I know we don't have that many homes for sale, but definitely those are the people that need to know what important things personal responsibility means. So thank you so much for this meeting. It's been incredibly informative today. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And yeah, a couple follow-ups there. Yeah, we'll maybe reach out to Brandy, who was on the call earlier, but left, and she's with Central Oregon Realtors, and she could maybe help us with dissemination of some more of those cards. And we're getting ready to print a brand new Fire-Free and Defensible Space trifold brochure as well, and that will be one of our target audiences for those. We're just about to the point of ready to share that. We're on version 7 of revising that brochure, but I think we're basically ready to hit the print button now, and we'll share that out with everybody soon. And then Commissioner Adair has also recorded a short PSA for Fire Free as well. So just want to say thank you. We're finalizing that. Whitney has shared a draft of that video, and look for that soon. We'll be promoting that out through social media and other ways to just another way to encourage people to participate in Fire Free. So, all right, we're winding down on time, but last call if anybody else would like to share any updates from their area of work. Okay, well, we're right at coming up on 9:30, so we'll go ahead and close out the meeting. Thanks y'all for those that made it to the end. And I know a few folks had to move on to other meetings, but again, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back here in May, and Fire Free will be in full swing. So again, thanks to our presenters today, and thanks for everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.